how the travelers in Europe are searching for value. Again, not a major surprise here. Review sites, price comparison sites feature strongly. 37% of respondents searching through review sites like TripAdvisor or price comparison sites like Kayak. They're widely used across all groups, though younger generations, as you'd expect, use them more frequently than older groups. Popularity of online channels, however, doesn't mean that there aren't pain points with that search. Frustrations do exist, and indeed, some of the frustration levels are in fact growing. When it comes to shopping online, for travel online, two of the most significant pain points for travelers in Europe came through as really a theme around trust and not knowing which companies one can trust. Another theme around not knowing if online travel reviews are in fact genuine or are promoted by the travel provider. Nearly half of all travelers share these frustrations, so that's significant. And another interesting theme here is that frustrations are in fact growing. That theme of questions over trust, questions over transparency are in fact going up over the course of the last 3 years that we've been doing this study. You can imagine that frustrations, those particular frustrations, do peak among the older, less tech-savvy generations. But that's actually not the case, and that's not what we saw in our research. Frustration is, in fact, higher with Gen Z and Gen Y populations, so an interesting thing for us to have sight of and an interesting thing for us to try and address. I think there's another trend here underlying this, which is that across Europe, trust often starts from a pretty low base. When we look at some sources, and for example, Edelman's Trust Barometer, we see that largely consumers in Europe are mistrusting of businesses, mistrusting of governments. And while technology is the most trusted sector out there, it is this lack of trust and real need for transparency is something that in the travel industry we all need to think about and do our utmost to address. Of course, it's not just online channels that travelers in Europe look to find value, to book that next trip. 1/4 of travelers that we surveyed almost always seek recommendations and use travel professionals, travel agents, like many of you in the room. This figure has remained the same since 2017, so no movement upwards or downwards, which is interesting. And I think another further really interesting fact here is it's not just older generations that are responding that they value the use of the travel agent. It's, in fact, those younger generations, the Instagram generation, that is using travel agents, and you see the stats here, 28% of Gen Y respondents said that in the last 12 months they have used the services of a travel agent to help them with a trip. When we look more globally at some of the data underpinning travel agent usage and kind of booking trends under this, we see that across other geographies that same kind of insight is revealed, that those younger generations enlisted the support of a travel professional in many geographies, actually more commonly than older generations such as baby boomers. Trend number 2, moving on, and I think kind of much was said about this, the value, the power of personalization in Jonathan's session a little earlier. Trend around the desire to personalize your experience, but personalization with more transparency and a good level of control for the traveler underpinning that. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. I guess, you know, a lot of debate in our industry and in many others around if and how personalization is really kind of desired by consumers. According to our study, across all age groups, when booking a flight, travelers typically want to personalize their own experience with add-ons, 45% of respondents, so add-ons like extra legroom, baggage allowance, meals, etc. Demand is particularly high among Gen Y travelers who want to craft their own unique experience for themselves. So this theme of self-service personalization is a strong one, and it's a stronger one, in fact, that in Europe than came through from other regions that we surveyed. 1/5, however, prefer a basic level of personalization through branded fares. This is, I think, an interesting trend, and really kind of shows us that products like rich content and branding, branded fares, are important for us to deliver to our customers and to enable them transparently and with a good level of control to craft the trip that they want. This isn't just about ticking boxes in terms of delivering personalization. It's about putting control in the hands of the travelers, allowing them to construct the experience, a trip that's right for them, a trip molded for them, by them, and that will best meet their needs. In addition to more control, travelers also want more transparency. So more than half of travelers in Europe today say that they're often left frustrated by not understanding what's included as standard, and also not understanding what add-ons are available to them and at what price. Frustration growing in this space, so I think something for us to think about in terms of that transparent experience that we deliver to our travelers, to our customers. So common pain points across all generations, all age groups that we surveyed. So I think more work for us to do on this front. Moving on to some technology themes. So third trend that really kind of popped out of the survey results was that technologies influence my decisions, and in fact, the level of influence on my travel behaviors by technology is in fact growing. 2/3 of travelers in Europe today say that they're now actively considering whether an airline offers a good digital experience when they're making a booking. Nearly half do the same when they're choosing accommodation. So these figures are high, they're rising, up 13% since 2017, and they really show the critical kind of role that digital experiences play in the decision-making process when we're booking travel. And I can understand this because I guess we rely on technology in so many parts of our life. How we work, where we work from, a digital work experience, how we travel and the experience that we want when we travel for convenience and entertainment across all sectors. Digital experience lies at the heart of our lives today. So understandably, delivering and offering a good digital experience is important in travel. And the data tells us that that good digital experience can literally be the difference between a traveler booking with you or booking with a competitor. Customers expect this as standard, but they should also, I think the data tells us we should also really strive to ensure that we deliver beyond the standard and we deliver to the level that our customers will expect, the type of digital experience they get through other sectors and other parts of their life. Social media, so a topic we drilled into in the research, and what we saw was that in recent years, social media has become, of course, increasingly influential when it comes to shaping our travel choices. This is because so much content today is on so much of the content today on social media is travel related. According to Adweek, 52% of Facebook users, in fact, are dreaming about holidays when they're online on Facebook in non-travel related kind of modes on Facebook. They're not planning a trip, but travel is on our minds just so much. When we're researching a trip, 59% of travelers have reviewed videos and photos posted on social media, not by friends, but by the travel providers themselves. The figure is actually much, much higher outside of Europe, APAC, Middle East, and Africa. That figure actually goes up to 90%. So still some way to go in Europe in terms of social media influence around our travel decisions. Gen X or Gen Y, Gen Z travelers nearly always use social media content and from travel brands to inspire them and help them arrive at the right decision for their purchase. I think one of the things that emerged quite strongly is that this isn't just content for research purposes, is really driving decisions, travel decisions by consumers today. Which are the most influential social media channels? The research tells us it's Facebook overall, looking at all age groups, and by quite some way. This isn't the case for Gen Z. With this group of travelers in Europe, it's all about Instagram, and by a fine margin as well. 66% of Gen Z travelers feel Instagram carries the greatest influence over their travel choices. This compares to just 13% of that group who use Facebook today, so absolutely on the decline with those younger groups, as we know. Gen Y also heavy users of Instagram, so I think quite a divide there. Facebook winning out overall in terms of level of influence, but with younger populations very much kind of tilting towards Instagram. Now seeing quite a demand around virtual and augmented reality helping guide the travel experience and the travel decision. 1/3 of travelers today believe that augmented or virtual reality experiences would help them better plan their trips. And we're certainly seeing the emergence of much more content in this space and it being a much bigger play. Of course, with younger generations, they also more significantly kind of expect virtual reality and augmented reality experiences to help them in their travel decisions. Though even 1 in 5 baby boomers say that they're up for it and plan on being informed through AR and VR. And I guess kind of the trend here is likely to go upwards significantly with 14 million additional AR and VR devices expected to be sold this year alone. So the move towards this being mainstream and not just a novelty is certainly well underway, and I think an interesting opportunity for all of us to embrace in travel. The fourth and final trend is that technology makes travel easier to manage, and I want more. We heard the story from Jonathan earlier about the experience he had coming from Venice Airport. And we certainly kind of see that frustrations come through from travelers, strongly kind of vocalized in our research when the experience they expect just isn't delivered. It may sound obvious that in today's world, travelers do expect to be able to access booking information 24/7 on their smartphones and smartwatches. But 39% of our travelers in this research cite that this was one of the greatest experiences, greatest pains of their travel experience that they had through 2019. And this is up from 2017 by 11% also. Breaking this down by age groups, you can imagine it's younger age groups that express most frustration when they don't have that digital experience that they want. The experience there of those younger groups who are online more on their smartphone for a greater portion of their day, expect that experience to be seamless, expect that experience to match what they've got through other digital kind of channels. Travelers in Europe are also increasingly turning to voice search, a theme we'll be talking about later in this conference. They expect voice search to help them better manage their trips. 1/3 have used the technology to help manage their travel. Gen Y, half of that population use voice search, and 16% of Gen Z nearly always use voice search at some point in the travel management cycle. As more and more voice search-enabled devices come into our homes, be that Google Home, Alexa, Siri, of course, we expect that this voice search trend to, of course, only grow. And I think the stats tell us that between 30 and 50% of all searches would be voice-enabled searches by 2020. So quite a move towards this being even more pervasive. When popular uses of voice search today are to request information related to weather or to live traffic updates. But as the range and the sophistication of requests to expand exponentially as more travel-specific capabilities come in, we really expect kind of a much greater level of use cases to emerge. You'll hear later today about our Speak Now feature, the Speak Now feature in EasyJet, delivered by Travelport. And this is, I think, a really super example of delivering a very frictionless experience to the traveler, taking the booking experience down to just seconds from up to 12 clicks, which is the case with the typical flight search approach. It's not just about speed, though. I think the other interesting dimension of voice search is accessibility. Voice search makes travel booking easier to reach for populations with accessibility issues. But while technology has a significant role to play in meeting and exceeding the expectations of travelers in today's experience economy, we also do need to recognize that it isn't always the answer, or not in isolation, at least. 1/3 of travelers in Europe, for example, find not being able to speak to a human frustrating. The view is shared across all age groups, more prevalent with baby boomers, as you'd expect, but a strong theme here of wanting that human touch, that human connection to help us through our travel booking. So what are the takeaways? What does this mean to all of us in the travel industry? For me, there are three big takeaways that we need to take back to our offices. So let's chat through those. First one is around younger generations being more demanding and really wanting change now. Gen Y and Gen Z are more frustrated by current offerings than Gen X and baby boomers. They demand innovative new solutions, and they are also less loyal, less predictable. So high demands that need to be met in order to have that population as a core part of our businesses going forward. Second theme is around the use of emerging technologies and channels appearing to be nearing a tipping point. Demand for voice search, as well as augmented and virtual reality, is now significant among the travelers we surveyed. Also, interestingly, their comfort with sharing data is also increasing. And of course, channels like social media are opening up new opportunities for us to land bookings in that social media journey. But we can't forget the importance of people as well. Younger generations are increasingly turning to travel professionals to help them create the holiday of their dreams. And there are some things today, at least, technology is not best placed to serve. So the solution is man and machine working well together to deliver a great travel experience to the customer. Thank you, everyone.